Have you ever delivered a lesson you thought was great only to have a room full of students staring blankly back at you? If you haven't, you're lucky because it's a terrible feeling. I myself have experienced this and had to ask, what went wrong? There are many reasons a lesson can fall flat. Effective instruction requires effective planning. One of the most effective instructional design models is Gagne's 9 instructional events. Robert Gagne developed this design model to enhance the learning process. Each of Gagne's 9 instructional events correlate to an internal process for the learner. This design model is focused on creating effective instruction that elicits specific behavioral outcomes. The first event is to grab the learner's attention. Try to make a connection relevant to the learner's personal experiences or use humor. The use of pictures, videos, songs, or questions can be a great way to engage your audience. The second instructional event is to inform the learner of the learning objectives or the goals of the lesson. What will the learner gain from participating in your lesson, and do they find this valuable? This is often phrased as, upon completion of this lesson, you will be able to. By informing the learner of the goals, this helps to set expectations and motivate the learner. Next, you want to activate the student's prior knowledge. Research shows that students retain information better if it's relevant to them. Connecting your content to information the learner already knows not only helps them remember, but it engages them further in the lesson. You can activate prior knowledge by asking questions, asking students to recall experiences or memories, and asking them to brainstorm or make predictions. This requires them to use stored knowledge to infer and predict. You then want to present the new content. What is it that you need your learner to know? Present this new material to the learner. Be sure to explain the content clearly and simply. Use examples and model your own thinking or processes. Appeal to different learning styles by using visual, auditory, and kinesthetic instructional methods. Don't forget to keep it interesting. You don't want to have wasted your time engaging your learners in the first 3 steps of your lesson to lose them when you present new content. Using engaging materials such as graphics, colors, videos, pictures, songs, and stories can help to keep the content interesting for your learner. Instructional event 5 is to provide learning guidance. Students need to know what excellence looks like before they can be expected to demonstrate it. During this stage of the process, you want to ensure that you provide guided practice and examples that show students what the intended outcome or performance goal is. The next instructional event is to elicit performance, which means to provide your learners with practice. Students need authentic opportunities to demonstrate the new knowledge or skill that's being taught. Practice gives the learner an opportunity to confirm their understanding of the new material with some risk. It's rare that students will pick up a new skill after only practicing one time. Repeated practice will help with retention. During or after practice, the learner should be provided with feedback to inform their learning. If students are making mistakes, the instructor needs to take time to address these errors and provide corrective instruction. Feedback should be provided quickly, and it should be specific rather than general. Feedback should also not be graded. Learners should receive feedback on their practice prior to being assessed on the new content or skill. They need time to process feedback and correct errors in their understanding. Once the learner has completed the learning module, an assessment or post-test should be given to measure the new skill or concept that's taught. The post-test should measure the specific learning objectives set at the beginning of the module. Post-tests should indicate mastery of the learning objective, which are typically indicated with an 80 to 90% accuracy rate. Data collected from assessments will inform the learner and the instructor about the effectiveness of the learning module. The last instructional event is enhance retention and transfer. This step is important because the learner should be able to recall the new skill or knowledge learned. Additionally, the goal is that the learner can apply their new knowledge in a different setting or with a real-world experience. I teach junior high social studies, so I use Gagne's 9 events very often in my classroom. One way is using event 1, which is gaining attention. I use a variety of different methods and strategies, such as images, memes, videos, songs, movement, or questions to get my students' attention. Sometimes I use silly methods like a funny GIF or meme, but I also use historical questions or images. For instance, on the screen here, you can see that there's a photograph, and this is from the first Battle of Bull Run. I use this as an introduction when I start teaching about major battles of the Civil War, and also how photography was a new medium used to capture the realities of warfare. So I start by showing the image, and I ask students to tell me what they notice, what do they see in the image, and then I ask questions like, how do you think the people in the image feel? Why do you think that the photographer would capture an image like this? And then it gets, we get into conversation about, photography capturing warfare compared to prior to that, we had paintings that would capture events in war. And so we talked about like the difference between a painting of an event versus a photograph of an event. And so it really engages them in the conversation, and they're really interested in looking at more pictures and images from the war and other events. Another event from Gagne's 9 instructional events I use is informing the learner of the learning objectives. I start each class period with a routine of going over our agenda, materials needed, important reminders, and our learning target for the day. I always have the learning objective in my daily slides, which is a picture here included on the slides here. And I also always have it written on the whiteboard. I just find it very important for students to know what they'll be learning, as well as what they're expected to do each day. Another event from Gagne's 9 events I use is activating prior knowledge. I do this by asking questions, having students brainstorm or predict, recall information that they've previously learned, or even relate to prior experiences that they have. You can see on this slide here, this pink background slide. It has a lot of text on it. I did a museum inquiry project this year with 7th grade where they had to design and build their own museum exhibit. So before they planned anything, I had them recall times that they visited museums. So I asked them things like, which museum did they visit? What makes a good exhibit? What makes a bad exhibit? I had students find images of good exhibits, and they had to explain to me why they liked them, like what was good about the exhibit. And this prompted discussion of elements that should be used to create and design a engaging museum exhibit. And so I had them do this prior to doing any of the planning for their own project. And so this was a really good way to activate their prior knowledge about museums that they had been to, both good and bad, to help them on their project. So in conclusion, Gagne's 9 instructional events is one of the most well-known instructional design models. If you are a teacher or an instructor who needs to plan effective instruction for your learners, you should consider using Gagne's 9 events. Thank you for watching.